Hockey, yeah.
My favorite. It's Judd's Hockey Show.
It is Judd's Hockey Show. It's a Friday edition, and so it is Judd and AJ. Got to hit on a couple of points here, so this will be quick. But so shortly after we got done doing the show, I think it was with Jesse a couple of days ago, the news came out that I guess what you could say is a guy we expected to be a wild free agent target, Brock Nelson, re-signed with the Colorado Avalanche. Of course, he was traded from the Islanders to the Avs at the trade deadline. 3-year contract, 7.5 AAV, 33 years old. I could only imagine the amount of celebration, AJ, that you and Jesse Pierce did in hearing that Brock Nelson was off the table and was probably in a very wise decision because he slots in very well as like the second center there to obviously the fabulous Nathan MacKinnon, had decided to stay put with the Avs.
Yeah, that was, thank you, Colorado Avalanche. I really appreciate you taking the bullet here. That being said, I feel like they were almost backed into a corner somewhat, Judd, because for the amount of value they sent in a trade package to acquire him for just one round, it would have looked awful visually, like from a PR standpoint to just, you know what? Yeah, he's not our guy. We wanted him really bad, but now we don't want him. So I feel like they kind of had to extend him $7.5 million for a guy that I think, he's coming off his worst year. Yes. Like over the course of his career, he is kind of a prolific playmaker, a solid number 2 center, but it just seems like it's going to get worse and worse. The next year, probably fine. But then the last 2 years of that contract, I think you might be thinking like, what on earth were the Avalanche thinking here signing to this? But I really appreciate them doing that. And that draws any temptation out of the way for Bill Guerin to go after one of the multiple guys named Brock from Minnesota this offseason.
Definitely. So I get where you're coming from. I don't disagree because the temptation there to overpay a guy who is way more towards the end of his career than the beginning is probably something that is best taken out of the Wild's hands. But here's what's interesting. Okay, the free agent center picture, which, by the way, with Brock Nelson, it's not like it was great, but the free agent center picture, John Tavares wants to go back to Toronto, right now 34 years old. Claude Giroux probably wants to go back to Ottawa, 37. Sam Bennett's 28, but he has had a marvelous playoff for the Florida Panthers, and he's going to get paid a lot. You talk about writing a big check. He's going to make a lot. Matt Duchene, who is also like Brock Nelson, 33, somewhat questionable. I certainly don't think that you would sign him and say, okay, our center problem is completely taken care of, no problem at all. So one is, I think this points more towards probably the possibility of a trade. And my second question goes back to what we talked about with Jesse a couple days ago, and that's Marco Rossi. So we know that during the season, he turned down 5x5. The Wild then put him on the 4th line in the playoffs. Then the Wild came back and said, how about a bridge contract? And they're like, no, that makes no sense because you just basically, eliminated our guy's ice time in the playoffs. Evolving Hockey estimates Marco at a couple of potential deals depending on length. 5 times 6.1 or 7 times 6.7. Now, he might want more than that. I think on the 7, he probably wants flat out 7, which is what Boldy got. But the point being is, unless the Wild's going to make a trade involving Rossi, that's going to get them a center who can actually help Ek, and that means you are at the very least as good as Rossi, if not, and preferably better. This is sort of a pickle. This is a bit of a pickle, and I'm not so sure that they're not going to end up going back to Marco, trying to play nice, up their offer, keep him, and I'm not saying that they still won't try to get a center. But like this notion of when you say we need to get Ek help, I'm thinking you're right. You need a number 1 center. And, the list I went through, Sam Bennett is the most desirable. And right now there's probably going to be multiple teams that are willing to write him a check. And I don't know that he's going to come to Minnesota.
I think based on just even like recency bias, because that tends to be a major factor for a lot of these NHL GMs, Sam Bennett's going to probably be out of the Wild's price range. I would assume. Like they're going to throw an offer, but it'll be similar to what you see with the Twins every year, where it's like, yeah, we made a call and we talked to him. We were in there till the end, but boy, we just, we got outbid. Unfortunate. They're just not going to have the money for him, unfortunately. I think Sam Bennett would be like the most ideal offer now, or the most ideal option now. He's just not going to be something they can afford. And maybe call me crazy, Judd, but if 2 months from now we're sitting here talking and we're like, yeah, the Wild just signed Marco Rossi to a 7-year by $7 million extension. I don't know if I would. I don't think that's super outlandish. He's 23 years old, so you're going to have him for the prime time of his career. And plus, this is a guy who, developmental wise, is basically a 22-year-old. So you'd expect him to keep getting better. He was your third best scorer in the regular season this last year, but $7 million, you're going to say, well, is he as good as Matt Boldy? I don't think that contract says he is, because with cap inflation, if you want to match that, you would have to raise that to probably like 7 and some change. 7 by 7 is essentially saying, because Matt Boldy's contract right now, when it was signed, was a higher percentage of the cap. That $7 million right now, if you do allocate that to Marco Rossi, is not the same. Like you're not saying he's as good. You're just saying, okay, we realize that instead of you signing this in 2022, it's 2025 now. Times have changed. Rent has gone up a little bit. We have more money to work with. We have to send you a little bit more every game. So I don't know if that's like the 6.7, I think is a good estimate. I still think that's low because they're going to want to get a little extra. A trade is probably the best way to go about it now. Like if you really want to move on from Marco, it has to be a trade, because the options that you kind of laid out here,
right,
they don't feel like they're options technically, but in the sense of reality, they're more so off the table already, despite being you're unable to talk to them, you're not able to engage in these conversations yet. So it'll have to be something to do with finding a guy with the team and kind of saying, hey, I know that we just took this guy and buried him in the playoffs, but here's why you want him, and here's why he's going to benefit your team, and here's why we need to take your really good center and get and we take him.
How's it going to work? Like that's my question. Tough. Because if you sign Matt Duchene, you've not solved your problem. So okay, say you're going to make a trade now, because you've got to. What's funny is you've got to trade Rossi in a package, and you need to get a center that's considered to be a better player.
Which I think spells bad news for Liam Ohgren if he had his heart set on staying with the Minnesota Wild, because he seems the most obvious choice to throw into a trade package.
Especially with Johansson re-signed.
Oh, yeah.
I hate to say it, but that's true.
It is.
The more I think about this, because as we talked about with Jesse, Johansson should be on the third line. I don't think there's any way that they would put him on the fourth line. I certainly wouldn't mind it, but they're not going to. But I think the real thing here is I think that was done to trade Ohgren in a Rossi package, because then you probably could upgrade at center, or I would hope that you can, because you've devalued Rossi. And at some point in time too, if this does not work, you're gonna have to go back to him, and unless you want him to sign it in an offer sheet. But like you talked about, that's draft picks for 2026. That does you no good in 2025, 26. So this is a real, as I think the perfect word is, conundrum. And it feels like they painted themselves into a corner to a certain degree. The other thing is, this free agent class of centers is just not that deep. It's got one guy now who's going to be a marquee guy. John Tavares was at one time for sure, but he's not now. Giroux was at one time probably, but he's pushing 40 years old. So I am really curious to see what type of Houdiniac Bill Guerin can do here to get himself out of this issue. And if we all feel, if and when a move is made in any way, if we all feel like, okay, they definitely upgraded, and player X who they got is a number one center, and now Eriksson can slot into the 2, because it just feels like a uphill struggle potentially, unless you've got a trade in the hopper that you can pull off.
it just feels like to any move, like you're not going to go out and trade him for a winger now because the options there to fill his role at center are so limited and so frail. You're not going to find that as good of a play. You have to explore a trade, which is why, like I saw some people saying, "Oh, the Dallas Stars are rumored to be wanting to move on from Jason Robertson to like," but you can't trade Marco Rossi for a Jason Robertson because who's going to play center? Eck can't play 3 lines of center every single night.
No.
Like, you need to go out and sign somebody. Then who are you left with? Pius Suter? Well, he's taking 42% in the faceoff dot. You want to go after Ryan Donato? I don't think so. Like, they
traded him already once.
Yeah, that's it's very true.
There's
not a lot of options left for you to explore that are like, you don't have to give anything up. You're gonna have if you're gonna trade him, it's got to be for a center back, and it's just gonna be tough to convince somebody like a rational GM that the guy that you're acquiring from them is somehow worse than the guy that you buried on the 4th line in the postseason.
I think your Ohgren take might be spot on. Because if he gets thrown in, because if he's involved in the trade, that changes our conversation at least.
Oh, yes.
Like I think you nailed it. I think you nailed it, and I think they got Johansson back on the cheap to stick him right back on that second line. I don't like it one bit, but there's something they're going to have to do something, and I don't know that the July 1st market, like you can get a winger, and that's the thing too is, I suppose they could trade Ohgren, Rossi, get a center who they consider to be a definite upgrade on Marco, and then hit the free agent market on July 1st and sign a winger that can score some goals. And maybe that's your second line guy. Who knows? But the solutions right now feel like it feels like it's a trade. It's a return of Rossi. And then unless they're going to go write the check to Bennett, it's a very distant third that I think that they can realistically address this at the pivot at the center position on July 1st.
Yeah. The nice part about like trading for a guy is too, if you go that route, he's going to have a contract. Like you can at least kind of pick and choose who you are going to acquire. It's going to be Rossi. It's going to be Ohgren. In my hypothetical here, at least, what draft picks do you care at this point? Do you care about draft picks that the Wild have like for the next couple of years? Right now, if they were to trade their lone pick on for what round 2 here, they wouldn't pick until the Maple Leaf slot in the 4th round if they wanted to do that this year. So very light draft. Otherwise, they have their 1st and 3rd for 26, 27, and then 1, 2, 3, and 28. Like, I think if you really said, hey, we can get something over the line to move Marco for a legit upgrade, like for what they feel.
Yep.
I don't care about the draft pick here this year in the 2nd round. I would probably even depending on the player, I would even hear that I don't care about the 26 first rounder. Like if you're going to be as good as you think you're going to be and probably should be given where you are in this whole rebuild 5-year plan, retool plan, you drafting 28th overall is not going to really help you all that much. So is that
but if you're going to trade Ohgren and Rossi together, I don't think you need to throw in picks. In fact, I think you should probably get a pick back with the players that you get.
Well, if you throw a 2nd rounder, can you get like a 3rd rounder back? So it's like a small upgrade and it's like a downgrade of that pick essentially. Because if you're looking to get a Tage Thompson, if you're looking to see just how much Dylan Larkin potentially is disgruntled in Detroit, like they covet him and he is a really good center. I think.
Sure. Yes, I agree with you.
You have to. My judgment on these like potential trades is whatever you think it probably is. You got to add one more piece. Like it's always like an overpay, and then we'll work it back down if that's the case. So that's why I'm talking about you got to throw in an extra pick to do something.
Yeah, I'd be reluctant to throw in my 2026 1st round pick because if I'm going to trade you a 1st round pick I'm going to trade you 2 1st round picks. And by the way, we don't know the upside of both of those players too. That's like right. Marco Rossi could be a guy that they should have kept. We've talked about that. And Ohgren, we have no clue, and it feels like he's been somewhat suppressed. But yeah, if that's going to get, just to use your example, if that's going to get a Tage Thompson or Dylan Larkin trade over the barrel, then yes, I would certainly discuss it. But that feels like the type of thing that they're going to end up having to do to really, if they're truly going to address this. Some changes at Iowa. Yes, that's right. We were told no changes, but there are. But first, let's talk about our friends at Neos Elite Performance. If you are active and trying to get an edge in life, let's say that you used to love to golf or play basketball, but now you can't. The soreness, the back, the knees, the joints. Well, the experts at Neos Elite Performance can help you get back on track with cutting-edge regenerative medicine and cellular IV therapy that's designed to get you going again without invasive procedures. They're going to come to you. You don't need to go to the doctor's office. They're going to come. They're going to get you feeling fantastic. And guess what? That means you're back on the golf course. That means that you're back on the basketball court. That means you're back doing what you love. Just reference our flagship show, Purple Daily, and get $500 off a cellular IV therapy treatment. No surgery, no downtime, just results from neoselite.com, Neos Elite.com. Give them a try and find out how great it feels to get back in the game. Okay, so at Bill Guerin's season-ending presser, he announced that there would be no changes with the American Hockey League's Iowa Wild, which, of course, is the Wild's top affiliate. This, despite the fact that the past 2 years, the team has been in both under now former head coach Brett McLean, 27, 37, and 8. They were 30th in the AHL in 24, in 24, 25, 29th in 23, 24. Yesterday we find out, that Adam Foote, the new Vancouver coach, has hired Brett McLean as an assistant, and so he's gone. And to that I say this, AJ, it's time to get it right down there. It's time to win some games down there. Number one, you've had the Athletic had you right now is the second or third best prospect pool in all of hockey. And I know that some of them are in juniors, some are in college, so they're not all with your affiliate in Des Moines. But that being said, I seem to recall that there was talk a few years back that one of the Chuck Fletcher downfalls, one of many, but one of them was Iowa always stinks. Like, you've got no talent down there. And so the thought process is, well, once you get talent, those guys will get a taste of it. A little playoffs, right? I looked this up. Okay, so that team has been a Wild affiliate, the Wild's top affiliate in Des Moines now for, I think it's 12 years. 2 of them impacted by the pandemic. So 10 years there have been an AHL playoffs. Mm-hmm. 8 of those years, they have not qualified. They have only qualified twice. And I'm not saying that it's a be-all, end-all to win the American Hockey League championship, or to qualify for the playoffs. But I am saying it is important to establish a culture of trying to win within your franchise. So Brett McLean, I don't know if he in fact was a Wild assistant who then became was asked, I believe, to become the head coach with the Iowa Wild. But Brett McLean, I'm not saying this was his fault. Clearly, the years of ineptitude go far beyond his time there. But I think you might want to change the culture a little bit from a developmental type coach to a coach that develops and also wins, because this franchise does not get nearly enough tastes of winning throughout not just its National Hockey League team, but more importantly now, the minor league affiliate has been woeful.
I'm a little torn on this, because on one side, yes, I want them to do well, and I want them to win, and I want them to, be, a model citizen, and kind of like something that teams are like, wow, look at the farm system that the Wild have. Like, they're so good. They just keep winning year after year, and they're always competing, blah, blah, blah. But also, if the St. Paul Saints for the Twins, is it their job to win whatever that technical league is? I forget what league they're officially in, but is it their job, or is it their job to develop their prospects and get them ready for the MLB? I would argue it's probably to develop their prospects. And that being said, it's kind of hand in hand. If you're going to develop these guys and get them good and have young talent, more so, if you have more young talent, you're going to start winning more games and being more competitive. So it's kind of a hand-in-hand thing. But it comes down to, how does the coach approach that? Do you go in there thinking, okay, this is my shot to run this team and make a good impression so that one day me, the coach, can take a step and go from what Dean Evison did. I want to say he was the whoever the
Milwaukee
affiliate
coach for
Milwaukee Admirals. Thank you. He was head coach of Milwaukee Admirals. He gets the jump up to the NHL. Is that like the coach has to have the mindset, and I'm sure probably deep down inside they're thinking, well, I still would like to coach in the NHL one day. But
Sure.
the goal and the main focus needs to be on making these young players better. It's the minor league. It is the AHL. This is not like if I can sleep at night.
Right.
All right, if the Iowa Wild falls short of winning the championship every year, but they do need to be better because you've had, like you said, 2 playoff appearances. One of them were in the prelims, so and they lost in 2 games to Rockford.
Okay.
In 2019-20, they were actually second in the Central Division.
Mm-hmm.
Season was canceled, so like that. If that made me the most Minnesota thing ever, but otherwise, most recent finished 6th. Finish 6th, finish 4th, finish 6th, finish 4th. It's not good enough. It just simply isn't good enough. And when you have all this talent that we're
losing,
it is. And so this has to change with a head coach hiring.
Yep.
The problem is I'm not as knowledgeable about who the best coaching candidate is for that right now. Like I can probably think of a couple like offhand guys, but I'm sure Bill Guerin knows a few, coaches that are in that kind of USA hockey tether that maybe deserve a chance that they might take a look at.
Iowa was 32nd on the power play and PK. Sound familiar? 28th in goals scored, 31st in goals against. And if this was 1 or 2 bad years, I wouldn't really care. But it's just the culture. And like when Fletcher got fired, they talked about this. They're like, we need to establish something down there, and they haven't. And John Cooper, who of course has won multiple cups with the Tampa Bay Lightning as their coach, he has talked about the importance of a franchise establishing, again, you're going to have years where guys get recalled left and right because you have injuries with the big club, and it's going to affect you. And the Wild's had that before, and they've talked about that, but they also talked about the fact that we have to be better down there. If this was just a blip, I'd be like, I don't really care. But it's not a blip. I mean, this team continually stinks. And I'm not, again, they don't have to win championships every year. Certainly, they don't even have to win a championship. They do need to get to the playoffs. They do need to have, that's the thing is, like, what are the reference points for anyone, for any young player in this franchise beyond their junior or college careers? What are the reference points of success? Like, there are none. The big club gets bounced in the first round, and the baby club don't make the playoffs. And so I would like to see development is important, but also keep in mind too, development was also important for, like you played junior hockey or you played college hockey or you played in the United States Hockey League, which is a form of juniors in this country. And so like development, yes, but it's also development about what the expectation within your franchise is. And it's also like developing, I consider the minor leagues, especially the upper rung of them, to be a place where you develop into what the team expects as far as their systems go. As far, it's if I have to hold your bleeping hand, or I make it okay that, things didn't go right. And I'm not saying that they did, I have no idea. But that to me is a major problem. Like this is the feeder system for, okay, you're going, hopefully you're going to go with the big boys next. And when you go there, you need to be prepared. So I don't know. I find this to be an opportunity to maybe get a coach. I think they thought the previous coach before McLean was too tough on guys. And I think that they thought McLean would help develop guys. But somewhere there's a happy medium. And the other thing that I would really like too from this next hire is I would like it to be a guy who's sort of on the radar of, oh, this guy's doing a really good job. Oh, I wonder, and not can he go become an assistant coach with the Canucks because he was an assistant coach here. No. I'm saying like, oh, is this a potential National Hockey League head coach someday? So not the most important thing, because the most important thing today is to get a damn center. But it is, I think this is an opportunity to take a real assessment of where your franchise is at as far as the tone that's set. And it's not just up here. It's with your other clubs as well. So that's my end of rant, if that's what that was.
Yeah, whoever they hire, I think it would be amazing if we see like in a season or two, hey, he's leaving to become the coach of wherever, because that just means they're doing that great of a job. Whoever comes in, the main focus has to be like right now, just looking at the roster, everybody is between the ages of 20 and 26. Like it's no, and granted, that's what it's supposed to be. Like you shouldn't have a 32-year-old vet who's just there as like mentoring guys or whatever. That's just not how it is. But whoever it is, it's a young room. It's a lot of very impressionable guys who should be coachable and ready to develop their skills because they're looking to, not to put it in a wrong way, but just to not play on that team anymore. Do they all want to be there? Yes and no. Like it's on the road to the NHL, but they don't want to be there for an expense. Like nobody wants to be in a AHL franchise's all-time leading scorers list. Like no. That means you're kind of burned out. And unfortunately, it's funny I say that because Marco Rossi is number 9 all-time for Iowa Wild points. Do with that what you will. I mean, granted, he played 116 games, and a lot of the other guys here have 200 plus.
Sure,
but he has to make the most out of these young guys, and we have to start seeing the prospects that the Wild have been lauding in national media. Hey, great prospect pools. They have to start coming out. They have to start showing up and showing why they've been talked about for so long, because I just feel like the Wild have not had that come to fruition where you see other teams, oh, we're going to call up our Jake Neighbors. We're going to call up, and granted, Snuggerud is a different story, but like, oh, this guy came out of the AHL. He had a small stint, but he was lighting it up. He's going to get his chance. How many times do the Wild give that age? Like Adam Beckman was the one that I think for a long time Wild fans wanted to see more in the lineup, and he just never got his chance. Was that a failure of development, or was it just he wasn't the player that they actually wanted? Granted, he hasn't done much since leaving the organization, so they might have just called it right there. But at a certain point, you have to start looking at the developmental side of things, and hopefully whoever they bring in is able to really turn that table.
Absolutely. All right, we are done. Of course, back early, probably on what are we recording on now? Wednesdays with Jesse Pierce next week.
I think so.
Perhaps it'll be Tuesday. Who knows? But we will have an episode. It will be the three of us, and there will be hot takes. I can guarantee that. Judd's Hockey Show. We'll talk to you later.